My name is Simon Benninga. I'm a professor in this building. I want to tell you a little bit about where this program comes from today. We started this year in the Recanati School of Business. We started a one-year English language MBA program. It's called the Sofer International MBA program, and we have in our first year of existence 55 wonderful students from 21 countries. So Saul, I think, actually needs very little introduction. He has written one of the bestsellers of the last year, amazingly enough, about this amazing little country, and it's called Startup Nation. Saul lives in, the co-author is Dan Signor. We have to always give credit, right? Saul lives in Jerusalem. His book has been called A Playbook for Every CEO Who Wants to Develop the Next Generation of Corporate Leaders. It's not his first book. He's written a book about the Middle East. He's been a correspondent for Newsweek, CNN Opinion, Commentary, and a lot of other things. I'm sure I don't do you any justice whatsoever, but we're happy to have you here, and the show is yours.
It's very excited to be here with this incredible panel, and even just the process of thinking through how we're going to talk about what's next for the Startup Nation. It's been exciting for me because I've been going around in the United States and elsewhere talking about the book, many times kind of giving a similar speech about what's in the book, why it's exciting and interesting and so on. But I want to try to do something a little different this time. We were focused on the cultural aspects, and the way to talk about a culture is through stories. And one is about a guy named Scott Thompson, who is head of a company you may have heard of called PayPal. And PayPal was bought by eBay. And the main investor in eBay was Benchmark Capital. And Benchmark was here, like most venture capital funds are, and looking around, and they found a company called Fraud Sciences, tiny little company. And this is about in the 2007 time frame. And Benchmark was looking at this Fraud Sciences thing, and they decided to ask their expert on things like fraud, credit card fraud, who was Scott Thompson, to meet to check out the company. So Svat Shaked, one of the founders, is in there with Scott Thompson, and Scott asked him, so what's your big secret for beating credit card fraud? He's pretty skeptical about all this, and so Svat said, well, I was in the army like most Israelis, and our job was to try to track terrorists over the internet. So what we would do is we would look for, we kind of figured out that the terrorists and other bad people don't leave a lot of traces of themselves over the internet. And good people, normal people, they're not hiding anything, so there's traces all over the place, passwords, all kinds of stuff. So all you do is you look for traces, and you've got good people. You don't find traces, you've got bad people, and Shalom Yisrael. I don't think he said that, but that was the idea. And so Scott Thompson says, well, okay, now he's even more regretting taking this meeting. He's a busy guy, but it's some crazy theory about good people and bad people. What is all this? He said, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. Svat told him that he had already processed 40,000 transactions over 5 years, and he only got about 14 wrong. But, that's not really interesting for a company the size of PayPal. So Thompson realized a very simple way to get rid of this guy, and that is give him a test that's completely valid, which is, he said he'll give him 100,000 transactions that PayPal already processed. So PayPal knew how they turned out. And Scott Thompson had to scrub the names from the transactions for privacy reasons, which made it harder. But he said, okay, you take these 100,000 transactions and see what you can do. And he figured he'd never see the guy again. It took him 5 years to do 40,000, 100,000 transactions. So Svat goes back home to Israel, and this is about a Thursday. And about around Sunday, Thompson gets an email back. 2 words, we're done. So, Thompson is is kind of shocked. He gives the data to his 50 PhD engineers, just the top people in the company. And they're pouring through the data, and it takes them over a week, and they're still not done. But they get the idea that on the transactions that PayPal had the most problem with, fraud sciences had done 17% better. And that's a game changer in an industry like this. So, Thompson goes running to Meg Whitman, the head of eBay, and says, we can't let Benchmark invest in this company. We can't let anybody else invest. We have to buy this company. And then they're in a bind, of course, because he knows the minute he tells Schwat how well he did on the test, that the price would go through the roof. But, it has no choice. He offers $80 million, and a very quick negotiation. They agree on $170 million. And the next thing, is Scott Thompson is on his way to a country he'd never thought about, Israel. And probably never met an Israeli before he met Schwat, but he's on his way to Israel to see the company that he just bought. And he's on the airplane, he's waking up, he's seeing the icon of the plane coming in, and he sees the picture there, and he sees all the cities right around Israel, because it's just about to land. And it's, Beirut, Cairo, Damascus, Amman. He thinks, I'm flying into a war zone. I'm like, I bought a company in a war zone. So he's kind of has a little panic attack, but he gets over that, and he shows up in the parking lot of what was Fraud Sciences, and every car has a PayPal bumper sticker on it. He's very impressed with that instant loyalty. And then he starts talking to the group, the whole company, which is much smaller than this audience. And he's impressed that they're not fidgeting, they're not texting, nothing. They're rapt attention, and that part struck me as not very Israeli, but that's what Thompson told me. So what can I say? We interviewed him a few times. It was very fun. And then he starts opening it for questions. And he's expecting questions like, you just bought us, so how are they going to integrate our two companies? How is it going to work? None of that kind of stuff. It's all, why do you do things this way? Why not that way? What's wrong with your business model? Tough, penetrating questions. Nobody's afraid of the big CEO who just bought us and that kind of stuff. And he starts kind of sweating out there and thinking, I thought I bought this company. It's like they bought me. And this is Scott Thompson getting the Israel treatment. And, this kind of things, this is very recognizable to us here in Israel. We know what this is about. But we take it for granted. But, people who come from outside, it's something new to them. And it's not something that exists everywhere else. We don't respect authority that much. We're not into hierarchy. We're very flat, not in the Tom Friedman sense, but in the sense of lack of hierarchy. And it's so much so that Google. I have to be careful here because Mayor Brand from Google is here, but I consider Google probably one of the flattest companies in America, among big companies, a company that prides itself on lack of hierarchy, on the ability to challenge, and everybody kind of in the same kind of cubicle, and not a lot of barriers to big executives. But I will not reveal anything. What Mayer told us for the book, that when the big executives from Google come to Israel, they get the Scott Thompson treatment, and they're surprised how much they get challenged. And in effect, what's happened is that Israel is Googlier than Google. And you can talk more about, how Israeli culture fits into the Google culture. It's very interesting.